Okay, hi everyone. Sorry I couldn't be in the lesson today. Basically, what I had planned originally for this lesson was to go through the task sheet for our last assessment task. Hooray! Alright, so let's get straight into it. So there's a bit of writing on there, but don't be overwhelmed. It's really quite simple. So I'm going to explain it to you today, and then after I explain it, you're going to go off and just brainstorm. Think of ideas that you could do for this task. Discuss with your friends if you want. I really want you to have picked an idea by tonight or by, first thing Friday's lesson. Okay, so let's look at the task sheet in more detail. So here we go. It's transformative text of the messenger. So we're looking at the messenger and we're transforming it into another text. We looked at what transformative texts are in our previous lesson, so you should all be pretty familiar with what kind of things transformative texts do. Right, so let's look at the purpose of this task. Firstly, in this task you will develop your understanding of genre by considering how a text may be transformed into other forms of the same text type or into different text types from the original. The aim of transforming text is to explore the complex ways in which form and conventions are significant in making meaning, both for original and transformed texts. So we know that transformative texts engage with their precursor text on various levels, in two-way sort of formats. And they provide avenues for new voices and meanings to be heard and seen, as well as providing different perspectives. So in this task, you're going to evaluate some literary conventions that Susak uses and the effectiveness of these in shaping both your own creative decisions in your own transformative text. So, for example, if you were to do a narrative or a poem, you might want to use lots of personification to sort of show your relationship with Susak's text. Or you might not want to and think about how you would justify that in the writer's statement. To support your evaluation, students consider the way in which meaning is altered when the messenger is transformed. So if you were to write, a different ending to the novel, how would that alter its meaning? If you were to write a chapter from the Edgar Street woman's perspective, how would that change the meaning, or how would it transform it? Is a better way to ask it. Anyway, that's sort of intro to the task. Now, what is the actual task? There are two components. The first one is you actually write something creative, which is about 500 to 700 words. If you choose a poem, it can be far less words than that. I'm fine with that. And then the second part is your writer's statement. This is where you talk about your first part. So you talk about the production, the text you've made, you transformed, and you say what you've done, why you've done it. Why did you choose that language? Why did you choose this character? What is the effectiveness of your techniques that you've used? So it's kind of like analysing your own work in a weird way. Okay, so like you analyse Susak's use of language and whatever, analyse your own use of language. Why did you choose what you chose? So it requires you to transform the messenger or an aspect of it into another form. It doesn't have to be written, it can be the storyboard. The accompanying writer's statement should outline the choices you have made. Sorry, that's my dog scratching himself. In terms of the choices you've made in terms of what text type, who is this for, and what's your purpose. So your purpose might be to tell Sophie's story. Your purpose might be to tell, a prequel to Ed's life. So what happened before we see him in the novel, maybe? What was his childhood like? What was his mother's and father's relationship like? That would be fascinating. Anyway, there's heaps more guidelines on Moodle at the moment for the writer's statement. These will become available on Google Classroom eventually. And so obviously these are equally important. Don't just think because you've done a wicked text production, that means you can just do a crappy writer's statement. No, often the writer's statement actually quantifies and justifies what you've done in the text production, the creative. Each task option, except the eulogy, is tailored to address a single theme, part, or event from the novel. Okay? So think about what singular idea your transformative text is taking and transforming. So here are your options for the transformative task. So for part one of the task. So you could do a poem inspired by the novel. So compose a poem that incorporates either the first line, epigraph, on the card, so 35 Edgar Street, whatever it is, or the chapter title somewhere within it. The poem needs to relate to ideas explored or the journey that Ed goes through. So, yeah, you can take a line basically from the novel, a chapter name, a part name, like, the colour of her lips, or Murder at the Cathedral. You could take that title and write a poem inspired by that, or just any line from the novel, really. And, that line about small things that are big, wouldn't that make a nice poem? Anyway, so you can do that. And your poem has to be fairly lengthy. It can't just be like 5 lines. I'll show an example in class sometime. So that's one option. You can do a poem inspired by the novel. You can transform it. Secondly, you could do a storyboard if you're into film or visual language. So you select a key scene or moment from the novel and adapt it into a storyboard. I'll provide the sort of scaffold for this if you want to do this option. So consider how you would create mood and communicate the sort of action, subtext, the feelings, emotions through, cinematography, editing, lighting, mise-en-scène, what's in the scene. So you would draw. You have to be good at art, I suppose. You draw each shot. Say, what's a good part of the novel? Let's say you were doing a storyboard of the sledge game, or you were doing a storyboard of the robbery, yeah? And you were using what types of shots would you use? How would these convey the kind of ideas you want to convey about the messenger in that section? So how would you use the features of film to transform the messenger? I think the messenger would make a great film. I don't know why it's not made into a film. Okay, a really common one is writing from another character's perspective. So you could just do a normal narrative type prose thing where you rewrite a key scene from another character's perspective. So you might want to be Miller's perspective. You might want to be Richie, or who else is there? Audrey's perspective, or whoever. Okay, there's so many characters to choose from. Gavin, Rose, whoever. Use specific details about the incident and your knowledge of them to sort of shape this really new, interesting perspective prose piece. I think one girl last year did it from Alice's perspective, who is the young daughter in 45 Edgar Street. You could also do a eulogy. It's an interesting one. So imagine that Ed Kennedy died at the end of the novel, and you have been charged with delivering his eulogy. So use your knowledge of his character and the events to consider how you would speak at Ed's funeral. What would be said about his life and his personality? Okay, and lastly, if you've got an idea that's not on here, please talk to me about it. I'm more than happy to, negotiate ideas. If you're really good at art and want to do an artwork inspired by the messenger, you'd have to still do a writer's statement. But I'm totally down for that. Things you could do alternatively, like a prequel, so what happened before the messenger, or rewrite the ending. Like, there's so many things, so let me know. Okay, importantly, your transformative text should be a thoughtful and complex reimagining or adaptation of the original. Don't simply put one thing into another. So I don't want you to write me a poem that tells me exactly what happens in the messenger. I want to see new, different, interesting ideas being thrown around, not just what's I already know. So really think about the text. What inspires you and what do you want to capture, reinvent, or express? So rather than just converting it, how will you engage that two-way thing with the text to create interesting or new meanings? Whatever you decide, it must demonstrate your understanding of the ideas and features of the novel. Okay? Your success in this task is dependent on your ability to do the following. Use techniques. So if you're doing a narrative, do you use good descriptive language? Do you use good characterization, good dialogue? Do you understand the messenger? It'll show how much you understand the novel in your transformative, the things that you incorporate, the sort of cleverness behind it. Do you use the appropriate conventions? So do you use poetic techniques? Do you use film shots for your storyboard? If you're doing a written piece and you write a statement, how fluent is your writing? And this is important. How well do you justify the decisions that you've made? So I did this and this is why I did it, and it has to be kind of thoughtful evaluation of that. Here is the rubric. We'll go through this another time. And one more thing before I let you go. Due date is, well, two more things. Due date, Wednesday, week 8. We're now in week 6, June 20th. This due date is actually non-negotiable for many reasons because reports are due and I need to mark all 60 assignments before I leave to do reports. So you must please get it in by the due date, both parts submitted at the same time. And go to Moodle. There's heaps of stuff on here. So you go to Transformative Text, there it is. And you've got task sheet, you've got key features of each text type. So have a look if you're doing poetry, if you're doing prose, storyboard, heaps of stuff to help you out. And some A-grade examples of transformative texts and some guiding stuff for the writer's statement. Okay, guys, use the rest of this lesson to please work on your brainstorming for this task. And I'm hoping to see you all put a great idea into the Google Doc form, which will be here. Enter your transformative text choice here. I want to see those all filled out by Friday. I want to know, so for example, this is what it looks like. God, this has gone too long, that's okay. So there's your name and just add in what you've done. So I'm going to do poem and about Sophie, whatever. Okay, so please do that. Use this lesson wisely to brainstorm and hopefully you can come up with a great idea. All right, see you Friday.